Confusion reigns in Serie A with COVID threatening to derail Sunday's fixtures. Stevie G travels to enemy territory in the FA Cup third round. Ricardo Pepi's Bundesliga adventure begins, and so too does AFCON 2021. I'm with Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce, and Jonathan Johnson to discuss all that and much more. Qué Golazo weekend preview begins right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Qué Golazo. Thank you so much for being part of the family. We are now over 7,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much. Let's get to 10,000. YouTube.com/Qué Golazo. We're on Twitter, Qué Golazo Pod, Apple Podcast, Spotify, etc., etc. Right then, weekend preview. All righty. Heath Pierce, what's up, man?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, baby? Life's good.
I'm good. You look all beigey.
Yeah,
you look all beigey and brown.
That background is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I do a lot of mini puppeteering. I do a lot of puppet shows for kids, things like that. So I'm for hire. You just have to. I come with quite a cost.
I love it. I love it. And that was Jonathan Johnson's voice. JJ, how are you, bud?
Very well, thanks. Great to be back with you guys.
Absolutely. Happy New Year. Jimmy Conrad, what's up, man?
I've decided I'm going to change my New Year's resolution, and I want it to be Heath Pierce doing a puppet show behind me while we do one of the Qué Golazo podcasts.
I love it. We will make that happen, Jimmy Conrad. Let's do it. Welcome, everybody, to our weekend preview, Qué Golazo. Thank you so much for being here. Right then, we begin, of course, with Serie A, because it is returning with an asterisk. Everything that we tell you today about the Italian league, please take it with a pinch of salt, because there is a lot of turmoil from a fixture perspective, a lot of multiple COVID outbreaks as Omicron continues to impact the game. The league's COVID protocol, by the way, is that games will go ahead with 13 players, including a goalkeeper. But as of right now, as we speak, 4 of Thursday's games are postponed. Bologna Inter, Atalanta Torino, Salernitana Venezia, Fiorentina Udinese. And also, by the way, in the weekend, a lot of that will be changing as well. 3 Napoli players ordered by local health authority to quarantine for a week. There's just a lot. So every time we talk about Serie A today, everybody, is going to be tough. So, Jimmy, let's begin with you. Serie A, it returns. Let's go with the harder.
Okay, I'll go first. I just want to throw out a disclaimer. I'm not giving out any betting tips because I don't know the starting lineups for any of these
That's
games.
why I began with you, Jimmy.
I'm just going to start there. But there could be some good value for some of the smaller teams. That's also something to consider if you want to throw it out there and take some risks.
Wait, so are you giving betting tips?
I'm just saying, I'm not giving betting tips. I don't know the starting lineups, but I will say there could be some tremendous value. You just got to look at it and choose wisely. Maybe a crazy parlay.
Surely it's going to be good value that there's not a full slate of fixtures.
That too. There's plenty to discuss there, but because I don't know the starting lineups, it's hard for me to really advise people one way or the other. I do want to say, though, the Bologna-Inter game was crazy because Inter Milan flew there, showed up to the stadium, and Bologna didn't tell anybody, and they didn't have enough players, and they just canceled the game. Inter Milan's like, what the hell is going on? So they had to have a training session, from what I understand, at the stadium just to get something out of the game, but they're pissed, and their whole front office and coaching, everybody's upset. Because the local authorities, because there's some rules in Italy that give all the power to the local authorities, local health authorities, saying that Bologna have too many COVID issues, they can't play. If that's the case, we could see a lot of games postponed here. So I'm very curious to see how Serie A is going to handle that. Obviously later today, after we're done taping this, Juventus plays Napoli. Obviously, that's going to impact some things. I don't think Napoli's going to win that one anyway. I think Juve are the favorites in that one just due to all the injuries with Napoli and losing some players to AFCON. So yeah, it's crazy over there right now. And I don't know how it's all going to be handled because it seems like there's a lot of people that are upset.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with Serie A.
Exactly.
I think you did a great job. Like, I would love it if Luis would have been like, Heath, let's go to you on a specific player, and maybe I could give you an opinion. But I couldn't even give a confident answer right now. Obviously, it just seems like the forfeit where they were granted a 3-0 win also seems like Italy is going through a lack of clarity or transparency with everything that they're doing. Italy is sort of no mystery that they've had a number of things throughout the years in terms of controversies and things that go on in terms of deducting points, controversies around that sort of stuff. But this is one where you would think, given the last couple of years, there'd be a stronger protocol in place to help people understand. But now you have local health authorities involved in everything to where even if teams are wanting to, where the league is saying, hey, you have to play, local health authorities are saying you can't play. It's just a lot going on. And when you go back to Atalanta sort of being ground zero for COVID a couple of years ago, they went through a lot and sort of a lot of tragedy in Serie A, not in Serie A specifically, but in some of these cities that have Serie A. So hopefully they can get a grip on this, and hopefully that'll lead us back to getting consistent games out in the league.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that and say it's actually really disappointing how Serie A has been handled over the last month or so. And that's not just talking about COVID. It's also relating to the Salernitana issue as well. They were saved with a very last minute bid. So it looks like they will play on in Serie A. Whether or not that takeover actually fully, gets completed and sorted out before the end of the season, we'll have to wait and see. But the fact that that shameful situation was even allowed to drag into the season was pretty embarrassing. And then to be back in this situation again with multiple matches, because it is something we saw last season. We had that famous Juventus-Napoli match, the ghost game, which eventually had to be replayed after it went to the courts and was appealed a few times. So, obviously we love it. We're delighted to have Serie A at CBS, but it's just so frustrating because it's such a great product, yet it feels like it's run, pretty amateurish at times.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues, I think, not just Serie A, but Premier League as well dealt with it as well. It's just like, anticipating what's going to happen. What you think that suddenly COVID is going to go away. You need to really anticipate all these scenarios. And to your point, Jimmy, about Inter going to Bologna and then suddenly they realize, there's no game. Like, these things have to be rectified. There are meant to be games, especially on Sunday, Roma, Juventus. I dare even ask, any kind of prediction, Inter, Lazio as well. Maybe Des would throw in the other games as well. But anything in regards to the fixtures themselves, Jimmy, and how things can look up. Because obviously, as we tape, Napoli still has to face Juventus. Roma has to really press the recharge button in 2022 with Mourinho. Anything out of notice that you may see this weekend?
Well, I'm curious about this Roma game that they played today against AC Milan, because Milan are missing Kessié, Benacer. A couple players to AFCON. Tammy Abraham should be back and healthy and ready to go. I think that'll give them a bit of a boost. So if Roma can kind of get on that momentum and get in that Mourinho momentum, then I think they could maybe make a little run here at the start of 2022. Of course, the proof's in the pudding, so we have to see how they play. I just feel like maybe Milan are ripe for some counterattacking. I could see a 1-1, I guess, that one today. With regard, though, to Inter and Lazio just finished 3-3 with Empoli. Crazy game, back and forth. Empoli went up 2 goals, 2-0 in the first 10 minutes. Maurizio Sarri, for all the attacking prowess that I think he's put in place and allowed those players to score a lot of goals, defensively, they are an absolute nightmare. And when they take on Inter Milan, who now have that extra day of rest and not having to play today against Bologna, I just think that gives Inter Milan, especially at home, the advantage against Lazio, as much as I think Lazio will push back. So I guess from a betting perspective, I think Lazio will score, but I think Inter will win. So maybe take a look at that, what that value is going to be. And then in the other game, just anything with Juventus right now, even though they've won 4 out of their last 5, they haven't really looked convincing. So I'm curious to see how they play against Napoli. And obviously that would influence how I think they're going to play this upcoming weekend. But yeah, obviously lots of things to keep an eye on, of course, COVID being the number one.
Yeah, the thing that I would follow up with that is Roma seem to be in a decent position if they can take advantage of it. Obviously, Jimmy mentioned the Milan match. Then they'll play against Juve. And then from there, they've got a pretty favorable schedule. 5 of their next 6 matches are against teams in the bottom half of the table. They're looking at bringing in some potential signings with Maitland-Niles being rumored there, as well as Umtiti. And so if they can bring in some of these players that can help them in the stretch and they can start to pick up these points in a consistent run of form, I don't see why they can't pick up 15 points out of their next 6 matches. If they can get 3 or 4 out of these next 2 difficult ones, I think that they could establish themselves. They're 6 points off the top 4 right now, and think that could be a huge boost for them. On the flip side, with Juventus, they've got a little bit more of a difficult schedule heading into January and February, and it obviously picks up again when they go into the UCL. But in the next couple of weeks, they've got Roma, they've got Inter in the Super Cup, AC Milan, Atalanta as well. And so this is a must-win for this Juve side, who are actually in a decent run of form heading into the break right now, and will look to continue that pace right now as well. And that's pretty much my main thing outside of potentially looking at this Venezia AC Milan game. Venezia obviously relying more and more heavily on the Americans. Looked like they were going to be a secure team in Serie A, and then have gone on this stretch of really, really struggling, where AC Milan now have to really, really put a battering or a convincing win to kick off the second half of the year for them, or to continue this run in the second half of the year if they want to keep pace with Inter at the top of the table.
You know what? I've got a question for you guys, because I'm going to focus on Lazio now. We've spoken a number of times this season about Maurizio Sarri, the way that he's got this Lazio side going, and we know that on their day, they can compete with anyone in Serie A, get a strong result, win a derby match, whatever. But they seem to drop points in the most inexplicable of moments, and I wonder whether there's not some point coming up sometime soon where Lazio say, okay, we don't think that this Sarri experiment is going to work, and they opt to part ways with him. It seems like it could be the next unexpected managerial departure, because it's not working out the way that they thought it would. This is a Lazio side that was recently in the Champions League. They could quite easily slip out of all contention for Europe if results continue to go against them. For me, I think it's crucial that they start picking up points and stringing wins together if Sarri is to avoid the chop.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say that I think that there's enough on the attacking side of the ball. And I bet if Castro, the hero Immobile, who we all love here, is, as the captain and one of the leaders of the team, is happy, right? And you got some of the key players that are happy with what's going on that side. And obviously with Ciro, the hero, having 14 goals so far this season, and Milinkovic-Savic having 7th, he scored again today. There's something there that I think you can see some promise. If they can just tighten things up defensively is really going to be the big thing. Is Maurizio Sarri the guy for that? I feel like he likes to defend with the ball, right? If they have the ball and if they possess, then the other team can't do anything. But if you don't have the players to necessarily perform that, and to your point, JJ, if they're just turning off in key moments, which are leading to goals, because, I see here against Udinese at the beginning of December, 4-4. Sampdoria, they win 3-1. Sassuolo 2-1, 3-1, 3-1, 3-3. The scores are all over the place, and there's not a lot of consistency there, to your point. But I think if I'm the ownership group of Lazio, I'm looking at, okay, if we give Sarri better defensive reinforcements, let's start there, because that could just be a problem in general that has nothing to do with Maurizio Sarri. And if he still can't figure it out with maybe a few better players or just getting healthy in that particular area of the field, then maybe it's time for him to go. But I think it'd be pretty early to pull the trigger on him right now. That said, he does have a track record of wearing out his welcome pretty quick.
The only thing I'd say to that is that they're 2 points off the pace of Roma, who are, again, one of these things where I think that Jose Mourinho perhaps has worn his welcome if you can't get the reinforcements and get the results. I would actually have the same argument that you're having, JJ, with Sarri, where you start to wonder of, like, when is the right time? You bring these managers in, and you don't bring them in to squeak into a playoff or into a Champions League spot or a Europa League spot. You bring them in to do something transformative or something impactful. And at a certain point, you have to wonder, as they sort of sit with 3 good games and then a couple average games, and like Jimmy said, these inconsistent performances, I wonder when the right time is to move away from this. Oddly enough, for them specifically, they've played in 8 matches. I believe it's 8 matches, maybe more this year, where they've either played up or down a man. And so there's certainly a lack of an ability to capitalize on playing up, as well as a lack of discipline where they're constantly having players sent off. It seems like there is a lot of emotion that plays into the side where they've left points on the table this season.
Well, they have to be careful because they are 8th in Serie A, and they're not that far away from anybody below them, just as much as they're not that far away from anybody above them. So in many ways, their fate is in their own hands. But, to everybody's point, anything can really happen when it comes to Sarri ball. All right, let's move on here. And by the way, as we mentioned, everything that we said about Serie A, throw it out the window. No, I'm kidding. Just take it with a pinch of salt.
Just everything we say in general, throw it out the window.
Well, JJ, I do want to keep my job. So I don't want to
at least when we have these things, we have something to blame when we get it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on here and let's go to England. The FA Cup 3rd round fixtures will show up on the screen very soon if you're watching on YouTube, but some interesting games, of course. United against Villa will be part of it. Leicester, Watford, Swindon against Manchester City. And by the way, 21 players and staff test positive, including Pep Guardiola, and 7 first-team players for Manchester City. I know everybody, it's Swindon, whatever, they can make it happen. But still, it's significant regarding those numbers. So he's looking at the FA Cup 3rd round, specifically City, Swindon, United, Villa. Anything of interest there?
The Leicester Watford one is interesting. I mean, obviously, Man United is interesting to me just because of the fact that they're almost back to full strength, it seems. And even with that, I don't know who they're going to roll out. It seems like things are getting worse and worse on the Rangnick, where I'm not sure if anything is going to make the difference. I read earlier today that it was either 17 or 19 players could be looking to leave the club because they're not happy. And you can name those all pretty quickly. And they're all big stars, right? When you think about that plus the players that aren't playing particularly well, that aren't looking for an exit like a Jadon Sancho. I just wonder who's going to be able to step up in these matches. Now, I do think logically Man United should be able to win this one, but there's no logic in anything that Man United are doing right now. It seems like there is, it almost seems worse with Rangnick now in terms of the morale of the team, the players, the fact that the transfer window is open now, I think obviously adds to the tension within the club of players looking for a quick exit and a number of teams looking perhaps at a fire sale for a number of these guys. And it could be a time for Man United to move some of these players on outside of Paul Pogba. The team is pretty fit, but I'm just not exactly sure who wants to play in the team. And with this 4-2-2-2, you would think that they would have had some time to figure it out. If you go back to when he first started, we're like, okay, he's adding a little bit of structure, the high press and these types of things, but none of that seems to apply. And then to move on from that game, looking at the match between Leicester and Watford seems like a pretty good matchup to me. Leicester are, again, a depleted squad where you could have a case where you have players like Yannick Vestergaard starting in the team. So Soyuncu doesn't seem to he'll be back ready to play. So there's a number of players. I think an upside from there is that Maddison's going to be or could be back into the squad if they decide to play him in this game, which is a boost just for the team in general. And then Ayoze Perez is going to have to be the star in this one if they're going to try to advance through this match. And on the flip side, Watford and keeping Ismail Assar as well as Emmanuel Dennis, but not being able to use them in these matches just seems like a bizarre time where we're going to talk about Aubameyang and a number of these players who were going to go to AFCON and then they didn't go to AFCON, but now the teams can't use them and all these types of things because of COVID as well as a number of other reasons. So that's a matchup that I
don't forget Ranieri against Leicester, right? That's a key thing right there brought up by Des. JJ, what do you think? Anything from England, the FA Cup third round that appeals to you?
I bet Heath was thinking we'd go one weekend preview without chatting Arsenal, but I'm looking at that Forest Arsenal game and thinking, could be a bit of an upset on the cards there. I mean, Forest now looking towards the playoff places in the Championship after a bit of a slow start to the season. And, given their history, Forest, obviously everything they've done in Europe, were one of the first Premier League teams as well. It's just one of those games where, there could be a shock on the cards. For me, I think that it's going to be a tight one. And it really wouldn't surprise me if Forest managed to nick something there with the magic of the cup.
I mean, you're saying this, JJ. Arsenal are the most successful team in FA Cup history. They're going to figure it out. This isn't the League Cup. This is the FA Cup. Also, Leicester City are the defending champions, so I like them to have that experience, despite them being super depleted in all areas of the field, to get what they need to get against Watford. I also am very curious to see if Daryl Dike is going to make his debut for West Brom against Brighton in this one. So Brighton obviously been playing pretty well. So I'm curious to see if Daryl Dike is going to show up and how he's going to perform. And then Manchester United, the whole thing is very fascinating to me. Ed Woodward's going to step down this month. I think that's probably a big sigh of relief for a lot of people, even though they just hired another accountant to take over who doesn't have any kind of footballing experience per se. So that'll be fun. I'm sure that's not a dumpster fire, but they've only lost one game under Ralph Rangnick. And God damn it, are they losing their minds over there? And
I'll tell you what, if you're not in crisis and then you lose to Villa at home, that's when you really know you're in crisis.
Yes. No, and you're right. You're right. So this is a big match for them in a lot of different ways. Now, I wanted to bring up the fact that every time we thought under Ole Gunnar that they were down and out and they were in crisis mode, Ole Gunnar would pull out some crazy result out of his butt, And so I wonder if Rangnick is still going to have that magic as well.
Well, and you know what? Villa is the club that always allows you to do that. So I'm not even going to be surprised. So yeah, good.
But Steven Gerrard, actually, since he's taken over, has gone, punch for punch with Liverpool and Man City. They've played really well against some of the bigger clubs. Now, I put quotations around bigger clubs in Manchester United because I don't know if you consider them a bigger club anymore or not, but that's my bad joke. But I find that game to be very interesting for the points that JJ makes, for what Heath said and what you're saying as well, Luis. This is the one I'm circling for this FA Cup weekend for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And the third round is always an intriguing one, but I do go back to that. All those COVID issues with Manchester City. I know it's Manchester City, but still, it's a lot. I mean, Heath, does that worry you in terms of a Man City perspective on what happens later in the future? Or are they just too strong, too good? They'll be able to deal with it.
Well, oddly, it seemed like Man City was the one that kept everyone under wraps. Pep Guardiola, obviously, laying the hammer down on two of his players and suspending them for their actions that could be detrimental to the team. Obviously, we're seeing now with this form of COVID that it's just running rampant through these teams. And quickly,
Heath, do you feel like Pep Guardiola finally just said, you know what, I need to go get a beer as well. I'm going to go hang out. And that's how I got COVID.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola is living in the back rooms of nightclubs in Manchester. And you know what? When he thought he was bulletproof, we ended up getting COVID, spying on his players.
Singing Champagne Supernova, right?
Yeah, far after midnight. But yeah, I think there is an effect on that. Obviously, the upside, if there is one, is that you kind of sweep through the entire the team. The whole squad is out, and the way that they're seeing now is the bounce back is pretty quickly, by and large, for most of your players. And so in this window of time, if it happened 2 weeks ago when Man City had more of a tough stretch of games or more difficult games, I think just because of Man City being Man City, they've gotten the luck of the draw on this one, or getting it on the back end after they've gotten themselves a little bit of a cushion. They're playing against, they have a very easy matchup that could have been a difficult one. So I think if there was a time for their team to get hit hard, this is probably the most lucky of times. I don't know what you guys think. If there was not that there's ever a good time or that you wish that on anybody, but it seems like they drew the best stick out of all the teams who have had to deal with this over the last 3-4 weeks.
I mean, also as well, when you look at the way that the rest of their season is going to shape up, they've already got a decent lead in the Premier League. They're going to be looking at the Champions League, wanting to go better than they did last season, losing to Chelsea. I mean, could City afford to not win the FA Cup this season? I mean, in any circumstance, they might well still get through against Swindon and come up against someone tough later on in the competition, or they might go out now because of COVID. But yeah, I don't think it would be the end of the world for City, is what I'm trying to say, if they did drop out of the FA Cup here because of this.
Yeah, it's more the repercussions after the fact, I think, right? Like what happens maybe after the FA Cup. But yeah, to your point, it should be, fine even if they bow out of the FA Cup. All right, we're going to bow out ourselves for a little bit, take a break. When we come back, a little bit quick on the African Cup of Nations, and there's a certain player that never disappoints. And then we'll talk about La Liga, Bundesliga, Liga, of course, and much more. Qué Golazo weekend preview. Jonathan Johnson, Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce, LME. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Qué Golazo weekend preview. All right, the African Cup of Nations this weekend. By the way, we have a fantastic preview coming your way this weekend. So make sure that you watch out for that. Please, it drops on Saturday. So if you're listening to this or watching this on Saturday, check it out as well. But the games kick off on Sunday. Cameroon, the host, against Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, and Cape Verde as well. But let's talk about Jimmy, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. His Gabon, of course, representing as well. But he has tested positive for COVID upon arrival in Cameroon. He was seen in Dubai, by the way, with teammate Mario Lemina in the build-up to the game. Talk to me about this, because this is meant to be a sort of audition for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Well, he got let go early from Arsenal because he wasn't going to feature in that Man City game, so they let him join the squad, his national team, a little bit earlier, and he took advantage of that by doing what he does. You know what? I really appreciate his consistency. I'll be honest. He's an equal opportunity offender of the rules. Doesn't matter for club or country. He is consistent, and I respect you for that, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. But he's probably going to miss out on the first 2 games for Gabon in the group stages, and that doesn't bode well for him. Obviously, the country really relies on him to be the centerpiece of their attack, if not their best player. And this is a big loss for them. And again, now, not only did he get a lot of, I'm sure, abuse for everything he's been doing for Arsenal, but now he's going to get it from his country as well. He might just want to go hide out somewhere for about, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks.
Well,
I think that's mandatory, Jimmy. Yeah, that part is mandatory.
That's true. I'm curious, though, just to like tiptoe into the waters of transfer news, what does this mean? I mean, Arsenal must be going like, we're trying to get rid of this guy. And he does this.
Honestly, which club is going to look at him right now and not think that he's an absolute clown?
Exactly.
They shouldn't have let him go so early. Why the hell did they even if they're not using him, they'll be like, look, we don't want to play
that kind of poisonous. You don't want that kind of poisonous attitude around the club.
No,
I mean, at the end of the day, the more time that you can isolate Aubameyang from his teammates, especially while they're in a good run of form and starting to recover, the better.
Yeah, but it's a catch-22, my friend. It's a catch-22 because you can say, look, we don't want you, you're poisonous, but you can go to Dubai. But that's going to risk our chances of selling you because you're going to get COVID.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm sure that I'm sure that there might have been some suspicion that he might pull some kind of stunt like this, but I don't think they would have absolutely known he was going to go straight to Dubai.
No, I know. I'm partly joking. I'm partly joking. My point is that, what Jimmy said, he's consistent with his offenses no matter what happens.
On the flip side, this is a good opportunity for Denis Bouanga, a guy who I rate really highly in Liga with Saint-Etienne, having a difficult season at club level, to be the talisman for this Gabon side at the Africa Cup of Nations.
Yep. Heath, Arsenal fan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, JJ knew that we had to talk about Arsenal because Aubameyang makes sure that we have to talk about the Arsenal every single day of the week. But no, I mean, look, there is no defensible argument for this. I am not his attorney at law by any means, but a lot of people, part of the fact that World Expo is here in Dubai right now has brought tons of tourists to this area, and under this idea that there is no COVID. When I got here, there was 100 cases a day across, multiple millions of people, and that has continued to increase and spike and have all kinds of issues here. And so many people came here for this escape from countries that have lockdowns and things like that, where they can't do anything, only to find out that COVID obviously is very, very rampant here. And this new type of, Omicron is moving quickly through places as well. And so there's no defense to what he's done, especially putting his team in jeopardy the way that he has, putting himself in jeopardy, putting others around him in jeopardy, and making selfish decisions prior to a big tournament where he had a chance to fix his reputation and potentially either fix himself with Arsenal or move away from the club. And now he's going to find himself probably sitting with Arsenal reserves when he gets back with nowhere to go and teams wanting to potentially offer almost nothing for him or not even waste their time taking chances on him.
Wait, Heath, I'm listening to you. Is that just code? Everything you just said for I actually hung out with Aubameyang when he came to Dubai?
I tried. I hit up Lucho Garcia. He was too busy to hang out with me.
Oh, that's right. He was there too.
Miguel Silvestri was here. I hit him up, and he was like, he couldn't make time. I hit up Patrice Evra. They actually have a celebrity game tonight. I was like, hey, I got legs if you need them. Didn't get invited to that. So I pretty much just eaten my humble pie. I'm not going to reach out to Aubameyang as well. Although a couple years ago, I did have to help with a few guys that were young, underage, trying to get into the nightclubs here at some of the bigger clubs in London from a friend of mine who works in or owns the Miss Lilies here in Dubai with young players coming in, sent me a message saying, hey, man, you got to tell these kids to relax. But again, I don't represent any of them. I'm not their agent. I'm not their lawyer. They are all free to do their own thing. And I'm just saying that
nobody wanted to check out your puppet show. Like you could have.
Exactly.
Nice
exactly. No one even has time for coffee for me. So I got no power here.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about La Liga. Real Madrid, who, by the way, lost their first game of 2022, and now they face Valencia Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Another game, Rayo against Betis. But let's talk about Real Madrid for a second, JJ. Getafe, well done on getting that win, but Real Madrid, is this telling another story at the beginning of this year or no? Do you think it's fine? They'll be able to rectify things against Valencia?
Well, I mean, let's just see how the next game or two goes. But I think, Real, given the way that they performed over the first half of the season, I think they put themselves in a position where they could afford, a minor blip. And I think it's from their point of view, they'll probably rather get that out of the way before the Champions League. I know there's question marks about Benzema's fitness at this moment in time. They've lost a couple of players through COVID recently, including Vinicius Jr. So I think, they'll feel that as long as we're sort of in relatively good nick coming into the Champions League clash with PSG, they won't be too worried. Obviously, if this turns into a bit of a rut in La Liga, then they can start, being a little more concerned. But also given the fact that, they're so far ahead of their expected title rivals, I don't think that they'll feel too much pressure because they'll look at some of the chasing pack, with all due respect to the teams that are there in and around them in terms of like the top four, and they'll feel that they have more quality than those teams to see it out over the course of the season.
Yeah, what I would jump in and say is the last time they had a blip, they lost to Sheriff. at home in the Champions League, and they followed that up by losing to Espanyol for the first time in the league in 25 years. And it looked like they were on the precipice of doing something similar because they lost to Getafe, and then in the Copa del Rey midweek, they were down, or no, it was 1-1 to Alcoyano, and that was the team they lost to in the Copa del Rey last year. So it was 1-1 for a while, and then they ended up pulling away and winning 3-1. So they kind of dodged that back-to-back loss that they featured in before. Now, after they lost to Espanyol, they rattled off 16 straight games, and 13 of them were wins. Something crazy. So I expect now with Vinicius Jr. back into the team after going through all the COVID protocol, after he spent some time in Miami, way to go, taking advantage of his time in Miami, and having more options. Because you could see in the Getafe game, if Benzema isn't saving them with some worldy goals or whatever he's doing, they do have a tendency to over-rely on him. But Vinicius has really, I think, helped balance that out and made them a little bit more unpredictable in their attack. And even though they had some chances, Modric, I thought, was actually pretty good in the Getafe game, hit one off the crossbar. That game could have gone either way there, but some good goalkeeping, as we discussed in our recap. But I like Madrid here, even though I'm a big fan of Jose Bordalas, the manager of Valencia. I think he's very good at getting more than what he has at his disposal in terms of talent. He's got him in a good spot. They're only 2 points out of the top 6. I don't think they're going to get the result here. Madrid are 19 games unbeaten at home in La Liga, but I do think that Valencia's future is pretty bright with him in charge.
Yeah, and they're also just very good against Valencia. I think Valencia is a strong team. The only thing I'm actually worried about is the fact that gap at the top of the table has been cut to 5 with Sevilla having a match in hand in this one. But I think in the head-to-head matchup here, as Jimmy mentioned, the stats tell it all that Real Madrid should be able to win this with Vinicius Jr. coming back. And I believe with Benzema rested and Modric rested and a number of their players getting those rests, they're going to put their full strength squad out against this team, which they need to do because of the quality of this Valencia side. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see more of Yunus Musa, which we haven't seen much of him since coming back from injury late in the fall of last year. So overall, I think Real Madrid are too strong. They can continue to get this gap, and they're going to have to just continue to kind of allow themselves to maybe have a slip up once in a while, but knowing that Sevilla are going to keep pace with them, but could fall off at some point. I mean, if I'm Real Madrid, though, I look at that and saying, hey, if we're going to lose to Getafe every once in a while, and Sevilla is the one chasing us or catching us, I like my chances of continuing to stay out in front and win the title.
There's another good game, Rayo Vallecano against Real Betis. Betis third with 33 points, and Vallecano with 30 in 6th spot. And Rayo have the best home record in the top 5 leagues this season with 8 victories and a draw. Jimmy, I mean, Betis, man. I mean, it's January 3rd. Pellegrini, can they hold off? Or
no.
What do you think?
No, they can't hold on.
Why'd you tell me already?
Listen, I'm a big Manuel Pellegrini. I'm a big Manuel Pellegrini fan, and I really appreciate what he's done to really solidify that club and make them hard to beat in a lot of different ways. I just don't think they can maintain that top 4 status. Sevilla, to his point, I think will kind of have to figure out how they're going to balance multiple competitions. I will say very quickly about Sevilla and even Betis, what are they doing in the transfer window to potentially strengthen their squad? I think that's really important. Are they going to add a piece or two? Is there that same ambition from the front office and from the board of these clubs to say, hey, listen, hey, Manuel Pellegrini, or hello, Julian Lopetegui at Sevilla, we're going to give you an additional piece to make that run because we believe we have the squad to finish in the top 4. Or in Sevilla's case, we believe that we have the squad to compete for the title against Real Madrid. So keep an eye out on what they kind of moves that they try to make in the transfer window, because I do think that will implicate what they're trying to do and how and their ambition in total. I'm sure the manager, of course, wants more pieces and more depth, but will the board follow that up as well? So that's something to keep an eye on, just as an overarching theme.
In Betis' defense, though, is it not important to tie down Pellegrini and Canales, which they've done in recent weeks? Also, you've got Joaquin's impending retirement. Perhaps they're waiting for him to move on to bring in some younger blood as well. Or as much as none of us want to see that day come where Joaquin finally retires.
No, I don't. I love Joaquin.
But the thing that really interests me most about this game is it's actually a tactical battle between two of arguably the most impressive coaches in the league this season. You got Iraola on one side with Vallecano and Pellegrini on the other. So I'm really curious to see how this one shakes out.
The only thing I'd add to this is in terms of the hunt for a top 4, obviously Sevilla have gapped themselves from 3 and 4 being Real Betis and Atletico Madrid, but there's still just a 5-point, I believe it's a 5-point, 6 points to Real Betis to place number 9. So when you talk about positioning, you're leaving a lot of room, whoever is giving up points in this match. Obviously, Real Betis lost their last 2 in the league, so there's a potential for them to fall off. We've seen that from a number of teams earlier on in the year. Real Sociedad being an example, Villarreal being an example of a team that's hit a little bit of a dip of form at times where they start to fall back in the league. And so anyone who's going to give these up is going to open themselves up to a race for the top 4 that includes, 6-7 teams that are seriously vying for those positions. And so it's going to take a lot of consistency, not just in the first half of the year, but more importantly, the second half of the year, if they want to have any chance at getting into a Champions League spot.
Now, you did mention Villarreal, and I want to bring them up because as we saw last year under Unai Emery, they won the Europa League, but they really struggled to handle or manage balancing that form, the same type of form in La Liga. They finished 6th, so they needed to win the Europa League to qualify for the Champions League, and they made it to the knockout rounds, which I thought was a bit surprising because Unai Emery's a master of the Europa League, not the Champions League. But they have been on fire, 6 straight wins, and I think it really coincides with Gerard Moreno coming back and being healthy. The guy has been on fire. He has scored so many goals since his return, and he's got, 4, 6. He's got 7 goals in his last 4 games. And amazing. That changes things, right? When you have for any team around the world, if you've got a player that just is taking those half chances and making them goals, it takes so much pressure off the rest of the team to have to be perfect, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And Gerard Moreno is back and healthy, and it's no big surprise to me that Villarreal have won 4 straight games in La Liga, are now only 4 points behind Atletico Madrid, who they play this upcoming weekend. This is a tremendous game for an Atleti team that we could argue is though decimated and just sold Kieran Trippier to Newcastle. That's just, they have so much talent, but Diego Simeone, I'm hearing a lot of my friends going, he's washed. The game's past him. He can't keep up with the modern game. I'm like, this is Cholo Simeone we're talking about. So there's a lot of intrigue and narrative and awesome narratives around this particular game between 2 managers that were very well known in Emery and Simeone, and then obviously 2 teams that are kind of going in different directions, though obviously Atleti won last week to kind of right the ship a little bit, but I'm curious to see how they're going to respond if they can build on that momentum.
Yeah, to your point about Villarreal, of course, their game against Juventus will be an added piece of task when they return in the Champions League. All right, let's go to the Bundesliga. Ricardo, Pepi, Augsburg against Hoffenheim, away at Hoffenheim, Saturday, 9:30 Eastern. The FC Dallas graduates. Amazing. And by the way, it's Richards against Pepi, a USMNT interest here, Heath Pierce.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, hopefully Richards played. He didn't play in his last game. He's sort of been in and out of the lineup for a lot of the year. He goes in these runs of 4 or 5 games of 90 minutes where he plays really well, has a little bit of a setback where there's a rotation in the squad, and it takes him a few games to get back into it. So hopefully Chris Richards is back into it. He seems motivated and excited about the opportunities that he has there. He's grown so much of a player, getting out from the shadows of being a young player at Bayern Munich. And then for Ricardo Pepi, this is a perfect scenario to just throw him to the fire. You brought him in for a specific reason, record-breaking transfer fee. You want to get him in as quick as possible. He's obviously training in the club. If you've seen a few videos that have come out online, they're really welcoming him in. And I know it seems cliche and stuff like that, but for a player who hasn't been in the greatest of form going into this transfer, it's good to have those teammates feel like they're embracing you and accepting you into the club, and knowing that you might be the reason that keeps them in the league, which, if you know the contractual structure of the Bundesliga, it's pretty much a 60-40 league where 60% of your salary is in your base, and then 40% sort of gets made up, even though 100% is obviously your base salary. But you can make up to 40% more on average on bonuses, and that's based on points per game. If you draw, you get a bonus for a draw. You get 3 points. It's based on a point system. So knowing these players could see Ricardo Pepi earn them significant bonuses and keep their wage structures and all the things that you want. If you're Augsburg in the tough time that they've had, you welcome this guy into the club, and hopefully that leads to a run of form, and it could start against Hoffenheim.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick. And what I find interesting about this game is that even though Chris Richards didn't start the last one, I could see the coach from Hoffenheim going, well, you know Ricardo Pepi. You played against him. You trained against him. He's on your U.S. men's national team together. Maybe you are the one that has the insight on knowing how to stop him. So I could see actually him getting the start. And it would be cool. Not only are we saying that 2 Americans are playing against each other, just in general, they're actually going to be playing against each other on the field. So I am very intrigued about this game in particular, to see if Chris Richards gets the start, to see if Ricardo Pepi at the minimum gets 45 minutes, or maybe he's the super sub that comes on with 30 minutes left to go. Because I think that Ricardo Pepi has shown that he likes the big occasion. He likes to set a good first impression. He did it with the U.S. men's national team. once he got his opportunity, he scored in the MLS All-Star game, that crucial penalty. Like, these are just these little moments where I think he's ready for the big stage, and he wants that type of attention. He wants that type of pressure to prove himself. And I think he'll be up for it. I think he's going to set a good impression. I'm just curious if the manager is going to start him and kind of throw him to the wolves right at the start, or if he's going to ease him into it and let him be a super sub.
Ease him in what? He's what in?
I'm just saying, dude. Managers try to outthink all the time.
His transfer fee is probably higher than the entire wage bill of the team, which is so bizarre and absurd to me that you cannot waste a single moment to say, we'll work him into the club. You're like, no, you're being brought in to save the team, and maybe there's a sell-on with regard to that in the future. But I just, if I'm there, I'm not wasting any time. I'm saying, hey, man, we just spent a lot of money on you. You better go start scoring goals for us.
That's fair.
No, I agree with Heath. And as much as I want to see Jorginho Rutter rain on Pepi's parade for my all-French Bundesliga fantasy team, you can imagine how that season's working out for me. I think this is a really big opportunity for Augsburg and Pepi, because the season's about to restart. It's not been the best start to the campaign already, but this transfer has the opportunity to breathe new life into Augsburg, into this season. And if you can build up the momentum, I remember it as a Villa fan when we signed Darren Bent from Sunderland. Overall, it wasn't a transfer that massively worked out, but the goals that he injected into the team, especially in that first season when he arrived, because he was a January transfer as well. The
massive purchase in January. That's right. We were desperate, JJ.
When he scored a winner against Man City on his debut.
He did.
That's the kind of impact that Augsburg need from Pepi, because when you drop this amount of money on a guy who's pretty much the new kid on the block, you really need him to hit the ground running. And, maybe he needs that pressure as well to like you guys said, he's the player for the big occasion. He likes, when all the cameras are going to be on him, there's no bigger chance than this when you can potentially make your debut. So I agree with Heath. I imagine he'll be thrown in as early as possible.
Can I just point out, Luis? Can I just point out real quick that you guys are talking about the Man City of old? It's not like he came in and scored against the Man City of new on his debut.
Keith Pierce, we were on the verge of being relegated that year.
I'm just saying, you're using some real marketing talk right now as if this is the Man City of new. We're talking about Man City of old, where Paul Dickov was the only club legend that came through.
But this was also Villa, coached by Gerard Houllier.
You know what?
Hey, guys, you don't have to defend yourself to me.
We had Jean Dumacoun in midfield.
I'm done. I'm done with this. Keith Pierce always looks for an excuse to.
I'm just a little puppet master out here, just trying to enjoy life.
I want to see your Paul Dickov puppet. That's
always this Dubai puppet master. Always for a reason to shit on Villa. I'm not going to say anything. Let's move on. Let's talk about Liga. Lyon, Paris Saint-Germain, Sunday, 2:45 Eastern. Jonathan Johnson, before we get into this game, you talked to Crash. I like to mention him as Crash. Give me a little bit of an intro about Crash before we give the snippet. How was the chat, et cetera, et cetera?
You know what? As far as interviews go, is one of the more interesting ones that I've done for quite a long time. We got to chat a lot of different stuff. Now, Crash, otherwise known as John Matos, graffiti artist, grew up in New York. He spans generations. He's worked with a lot of different guys over the years. We chatted a bit of Basquiat, a bit of Haring. It was really, really, really interesting, really cultural, got into it about music and stuff, as well as the collaboration he has with PSG, his affinity with Paris as a city. And I just found him a very interesting, very cool interviewee. It's a nice change to be able to chat to somebody like that, where you've got so many different topics outside of the box. So hopefully, listeners, viewers, enjoy the snippet of that interview, and you can find more of it on the CBS website or on my Twitter feed.
I love it. Here is the snippet, everybody.
What do you think, as someone who's obviously a fan of both soccer and basketball, of the collaboration work that PSG have done over the last couple of years, especially the stuff with Jordan? Because obviously that's, something that's quintessentially French, but also very much American at the same time.
Well, the thing with PSG is, to me anyway, they've always been very youth driven. They're like, the club is like 50, 51 years old. So, it's a relatively young club compared to a bunch of other clubs, in Europe. but they've always trended toward what's happening now. And I think that's part of the allure of PSG. Also basketball, like with soccer, is those two beautiful sports, where there's a flow, and when the flow is going and everything is happening, it just ticks off. It was, I don't know. You know what? In my mind, it was just the right thing at the right time. Even through the pandemic and the little slowdowns and the little hiccups, it was just something that had to be done.
All right, that was Crash. But let's get back into the game. Lyon PSG. Talk to me, Jonathan Johnson. What's the latest in Paris Saint-Germain? A big year, a big 2022 for PSG. And, of course, Kylian Mbappe. Talk to me about this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just put something up earlier today on Mbappe and the contract situation and how people probably shouldn't expect any sort of, concrete news either way, whether he's staying or whether he's going, until closer to the end of the season. Certainly not before the doubleheader against Real Madrid in the Champions League. But no, for PSG, it is a big year and it's not started in ideal fashion. Okay, they won 4-0 in the Coupe de France. Mbappe got himself a hat-trick, but they've had COVID issues with Messi. They've had ex-players slamming Neymar because he's stayed in Brazil to continue his recovery from an ankle injury, which looks like it's going to push him quite close to that Real game before he gets back on the pitch. And you've got players, dropping out with positive COVID tests left, right, and centre. I think Angel Di Maria is perhaps the latest to have tested positive. I don't know if the club have confirmed that just yet. So all a little bit messy for PSG. And coming up against the Lyon side as well, who, based on form, PSG will expect to win this. But Lyon, with the quality of players that they have, the need to start improving under Boss as well, this could potentially be a tricky one for PSG away from home.
What I was going to say is that PSG could miss over half their team, I feel like, and still necessarily get a result in this one. But they have a 13. They can drop points here, and it won't matter. I mean, they got a 13-point lead at the top of the table. Lyon are 21 points behind them, and Lyon are also only 9 points away from the relegation zone. I mean, they are really struggling, but they're only 8 points off of Nice, who are in second. So it's really interesting times in terms of the balance of where everybody is. Like PSG are clearly the front runners, and should be, given what we can see on paper and what they're capable of. But even though they haven't really played well, nobody's really been that excited about their form consistently. Yeah, you see bits of it, 15 minutes here, maybe 15 minutes there, but they don't look like they ever get into top gear. They're like second gear. Do we want to be bothered today? I guess Mbappe will turn it on at the end and we can score a couple and that'll be that.
So what you're saying is the focus is the Champions League, everything else.
I do. At this point, I mean, Lyon definitely need these points. There's no question they need these points. And I'm a big Toko Ekambi fan, even though he's gone for AFCON. So you got these players that I think could have helped Lyon maybe get a result in this one, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see a draw. Lyon has had 5 straight draws in all competitions, so maybe that's just their vibe right now. But I don't know. This is an interesting game for me, but you always got to tip PSG to do the business, because you don't know if this is going to be the game where they turn up and play a great 90 minutes.
I mean, I guess my follow-up with knowing that they had 3 straight draws even in the league, JJ, is there we've talked about this in the past about potential managerial changes at Lyon. Obviously, the club in itself has gone through so much controversy this year. I mean, is this a must-win game from the club standpoint, or is it again focusing on this is one where hopefully you get a point out of it, you maybe get 3 points out of it if you're at your best, but winning the rest of the matches is what's more important than this one?
Yeah, I don't think that they'd make a game against PSG a must-win one, but I think they'd probably set a sort of a minimum expectation of points from the first few games of this new year, because there's been some suggestion for some time that Boss, might be on borrowed time if he can't get the team to click. But there's so much going on behind the scenes at Lyon as well. It's really messy right now. We've seen Juninho Pernambucano leave as sporting director. He's going to want to step into management at some point in the future. Whether or not that season go back to Lyon as coach at some point, we'll have to wait and see. But for the moment, the expectation is that he'll probably start his coaching career in Brazil. But there's just they're Lyon being kicked out of the Coupe de France, all of the fan troubles that they've been going through, hitting Payet with the bottle and everything. It's been a miserable couple of months for Lyon. And now, they've come into the transfer window with nobody really to lead, their business, whether it's in terms of incoming transfers or outgoing. There's been criticism of the fact that they've been quite open with the fact that they don't really do as much scouting as they used to as well. So it's really not the happiest of times in Lyon. It wouldn't surprise me if, given a couple of bad results outside of the PSG game, if Boss is under real pressure sometime soon. We've spoken about it in recent weeks about how Jesse Marsch is somebody who's on the Lyon shortlist if they were to change coach. So I guess, we'll just have to wait and see how things go over the next sort of 2 weeks or so. But for me, I don't think that Boss's future will hang in the balance based on the result against PSG. But if it's a really disgraceful performance, and I know PSG rack up a cricket score, which has happened against Lyon in the past, who knows?
By the way, if Juninho Pernambucano ends up being a manager, can he have a clause in his contract where he can come in just for free kicks? How cool would that be?
Hey, we brought him to the New York Red Bulls just for free kicks, and then he got forced to train on a midweek game, and he was 38 years old, and he was like, "I'm too old for this. I'm leaving," and he literally left the club after a couple weeks.
Exactly. So just come in as a coach, and every time there's a free kick, he can just go in.
Did you ever get to crack the secret though to Juninho's free kicks, like watching him up close in training?
Yeah, well, Pirlo says it in his book.
Hitting it on the valve.
Yeah. He says it. He literally breaks down the aesthetics and the mathematics behind Juninho Pernambucano's free kick. It's quite a thing. So buy Pirlo's book, Jimmy Conrad. You love Pirlo,
I have
right?
it. I don't have to buy it. I sleep next to it. That's how I love him.
It sleeps next to you. I love it. All right. Well, that's it. That's our weekend preview, everybody. Before we say goodbye, final thoughts from anything perhaps that we haven't talked about or something that you want to echo once again. Heath Pierce, you first. Final thoughts.
Gio Reyna's back for the U.S. fans. He could feature against Eintracht Frankfurt this weekend.
It felt like a lifetime, Heath.
Yeah, it's and again, I've tried to keep my U.S. soccer propaganda to a minimum this one, but that is a big move back to come back into the team after a long absence. And then Bayern Munich are almost depleted of their entire squad, but Joshua Kimmich is actually back and fully fit after his controversies and lung issues and everything that he did. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Bayern Munich, even though they're cruising to likely their 10th consecutive title. It'll be interesting to see the team that they're capable of pulling out this weekend. We might be able to see a couple of young players that don't get as many minutes.
For me, I guess I'm looking forward to seeing how the two new coaches in Liga get on. We've got Philippe Clement at Monaco. He's left Club Brugge, had a couple of good years with them in Belgium. And Troyes as well, who a City Football Group owns. They have a new boss. Laurent Battles has been dismissed. Bruno Earl, who famously clashed with a very young Kylian Mbappe at Monaco, youth specialist, is now in charge there. So exciting times following both of those.
I love it.
And I would just jump in and talk a little bit more about the Africa Cup of Nations. Cameroon is hosting the tournament. They got Burkina Faso to start the tournament. What I love about this particular event is that it's wide open. In the last 5 iterations of the tournament, there have been 5 different winners. Algeria are the reigning champs. I think they have a good shot at winning back-to-back titles, but you can't sleep on the hosts in any of these competitions. Samuel Eto'o just got named as Federation President, and obviously all eyes should be on this tournament. It's a special one. And hopefully people can tune it at some point. My game that I'm really looking forward to in the first round is Nigeria versus Egypt on Tuesday. That should be a great game.
I love it. Well done, Jimmy, because that was my segue to make sure that you check out our African Cup of Nations preview, by the way, with Mara Masahi, who's an North Africa correspondent. He's fantastic. He'll be hopefully part of the show as well throughout because he's there in the tournament, as well as Michael Lahoud as well, former Sierra Leone representative. He was great as well in the preview, and our very own Nigerian scams, Tosin McKindy, to talk some shit about the Super Eagles because he's such a glass half empty kind of guy, and I love it so much. It's a great preview, so make sure that you check it out. But make sure that you check this out. All right. If you're, well, I guess you are because you're listening to this. So there you go. I need a third coffee. Okay, everybody. But thank you so much, everybody, for being part of Qué Golazo Weekend Preview. Heath Pierce, thank you so much, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Jonathan Johnson, always a pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Jimmy Conrad, get that under a pillow book out of your pillow, man.
Oh, what? I've got to read another chapter. I've read it like 18 times. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Heath Pierce, you're freaking me out with that thing. Thank you so much. Have a great, great weekend. We will see you next time.